Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh in association with Seymour's Loughrea.
And we're here in studio. Our thanks again to Seymour's of Loughrea on board as we bring you continued coverage of the club championships in Galway. More and on about the hurling and a big weekend, which includes the two intermediate semi-finals in Athenry. We'll start with that in a moment. But first, Sean Welsh, we've got to look back at the football, which went a little bit deeper into this week than we thought, and the drama of Duggan Park on Tuesday night. I'm sure a lot of people turned off the live stream broadcast on galwaybayfm.ie at half time when Annadown were well clear. In fact, they were 12 points up at half time. They needed to be 12 points up at full time, albeit anybody that tuned in the second half would have heard an unbelievable finish to the game, which needed Annadown to kick the last point of the game to get through and deny Milltown. But there was something deeply unsatisfactory about the way the whole thing played out.
Well, I suppose, look, it's unfortunate that the game was delayed due to bereavement, and we extend our sympathy, obviously, to the people in Bern in relation to that. But I suppose, first of all, and we can see, say, this weekend in the last round of the hurling, all of those last round games are fixed at the same time. So it's very difficult to know what you have to do as you're quickly looking at scores from other venues. But Annadown went into the game knowing on Tuesday night that they had to win by 12 points, and as you say, were there at half time.
But crucially, Barna had nothing to play for whatsoever
at all. And
so
then,
here's the thing, and I put this to you, like if Barna didn't show up, which they didn't need to, and gave a walkover to Annadown, then the GA were in some trouble because they couldn't have applied the score difference.
And credit to Barna. Look at, I mean, that's kind of the ethos of the GA. No team would do that, but there is nothing more difficult in a game than you have to win by a certain amount or you can lose by a certain amount. Do you remember Sarsfields and Loughrea last year in the last group game of the Senior Hurling Championship? I can't remember the exact details, but Sarsfields went into the game knowing they could lose by, we'll say, 4 points. And were, all through most of the game were either ahead or level or 2 down. And suddenly at the death, it became 3, it became 4, and Loughrea got the score to advance. And no more than Annadown, there's probably a bit of pressure that you have to win this by 12. It's not like you just have to win it. So I'd say that came into the picture. But look, at credit to James Healy, the goalkeeper. He came up and got them into the quarterfinals. But Milltown must be kicking themselves because, Ollie, listening to your commentary on stream, I mean, they had the chances at the death against Claregalway, hadn't they?
They could have no complaints with match referee or anything. They were given 2 chances to win the game at the end. Claregalway tightened up big style.
There were 3 up down the home stretch.
It was done.
Yeah.
So look, at the senior football championship fixtures are being made as we speak, but the hurling championship obviously this weekend, it's the last round of group games. So before we dive into the intermediate semi-finals, what ultimately are we talking about here are the relevant games, Sean, from the senior championship? Are we really just talking about jockeying for position
here?
Well,
we're talking about jockeying for positions, but if we look at, say, the Senior A, the top 4 teams, we know them in Senior Group 1. However, at the minute, you have Turlockmore top of the group, you have Clarenbridge second, you have Thomas third, you have Sarsfields fourth. They could all jockey. The 2 winners will go directly through the quarterfinals.
So those 1, 2, 3, 4 could
all change.
Be in any position.
Oh, any position. Now, the caveats here are Thomas's. I expect a big kick back from Thomas's. They're after getting a trimming from Turlockmore, so there's a kick there. Sarsfields are in a lovely position. Turlockmore are now elevated to serious championship contenders. And Sarsfields are coming in on the back of a great championship so far. They could put Turlockmore into the preliminary quarterfinals, right? In Group 2, Loughrea are the only team that are into the hat now, as we know, in the quarterfinals. But Tommy Larkins, Cappatagal, and a knockout game between Craughwell and Gort, will see who goes into the top 2 or the bottom 2, which means it's a preliminary quarterfinal. Now, the trick with the preliminary quarterfinals is you have another game. But if you look at, we'll just take it as of now, the preliminary quarterfinals would include St. Thomas's, Sarsfields, Cappatagal, either Craughwell or Gort, and then 2 from 3 in both at the top of Senior B, say Moycullen, Ordenmore, Athenry or Killadema, Portumna, Ardrahan or Mellow. So you can see here the serious contenders in there. So the top teams will want to navigate a course that probably gets them straight to the quarterfinal. Hence, I think this weekend we're going to see a fair bit of hurling. I think a lot of teams will want to get to it. For Senior B teams, of course, the big one, Ollie, is get into the top 2 in that Senior B and you're into Senior A next year. So all of that's going on aside altogether from the intermediate semis.
I don't think anybody will mind, though, is if we elevate the status of the 2 most important games this weekend to our intermediate semi-finals. And two intriguing ties, because even if you just look at the makeup of these four clubs, whoever ultimately wins this intermediate championship, Sean, there's going to be some celebrations in that parish, because it will end a famine, or in the case of Ceylon, it could start a whole new chapter in that club's existence.
It could. I mean, like, you're looking at such a long time. Say Clymer, Rahun, Newcastle have never won the championship since they amalgamated Rahun and
in
Newcastle.
77, Rahun won it. Yeah.
And Newcastle, was it in 60 or whatever? Aircourt, I think you're going back to
97.
97.
Yeah.
Clymer, is it about
84?
37? Yeah, whatever. Yeah. That was the day the three county finals were played in Pearse Stadium. And then you have Ceylon, as you say, coming through. The one thing, and the graphic will show you there on it right now, was we used this 2 weeks ago as well. Over the last 8 years, the consistency of Clymer, Rahun, Newcastle and Millick Aircourt has been phenomenal. Clymer, 4 quarter-finals, 2 semis, 1 county final appearance in 8 years. Rahun, 3 quarters, 4 semis in the last 8 years. And Aircourt, 3 quarter-finals, 2 semis and 1 county final appearance in the last 8 years. So they're the experienced teams. You're saying surely one of them has to get over the line this year. And then you have Ceylon. I won't say coming out of the blue, because they're not. They've put 2 very good years back to back. They've had great league campaigns. They're very good hurlers. So this is intriguing. And if you remember last year, Clymer only got over Ceylon after extra time by a point.
And they're doing battle again, which leads us nicely to bring in our special guest for Over the Line Extra. And that's Stephen Glennon, who a lot of people, of course, will know, well, not just from a variety of sports, but from the newspaper industry as well, formerly of the Connacht Tribune Parish, now down in my own neck of the woods in the Tuam Herald, formerly ladies football, current hurling. He'll have his foot in the Craughwell camp, I'm sure, this weekend. But Stephen, we got to ask your opinion on the intermediate championship, and I'm sure you, like the rest of us, have been admiring the work in Ceylon in recent years as they've plotted a course to being on the cusp of getting through to an intermediate final. Can they do it?
I think they can. It's, they probably are up against it. Clymer are probably driven from last year's defeat. They probably had it within their grasp, and late on they lost it with probably a freak set of circumstances, goalkeeping error. But in fairness, Ceylon did push them all the way in the semi-final last year, as Sean alluded to there. They're a fairly hard-working team, very structured. And I know they've put a lot of work in the background, like Dylan Connors, who was involved with us in the Galway Ladies, is part of the management backroom team there. So, and he's been working hard with them there as well. So, yeah, I think they can have a right good go at it this weekend.
Obviously, from Clymer, it's all about the nightmare of that county final to Moycullen last year and trying to right the wrong. So I suppose as they go into Kenny Park and Athenry, a lot of those guys will be, shivering, and some of them quite upset with the way that finished up last year. That clearly has been their motivation from the start.
Well, you can't underestimate that. It's particularly when you start getting momentum in your campaign the following year. Then it keeps driving you on. They'll be looking to, they will harness that. And, I suppose you can look back at last year's game and say it was close and that. But like the way Clymer went about dismantling Turlough, which was kind of a bit of a shock. Thought they might win that game, all right, but couldn't envisage them doing what they did to Turlough that weekend. So they're coming in on the crest of a wave there after that big win. But sometimes that can have a negative effect as well, in that maybe you come in with a false sense of yourself as well. And if Ceylon bring the work rate from the very start and bring that intensity and make a battle out of it, which I expect they will, it might not just be as easy for Clymer as we're thinking.
That's the point, Sean. I mean, if you win a game by 30 points, it's not really worth the damn to you when it comes to a semi-final, is it?
Yeah, the thing, and I was at the game, I mean, what impressed me about Clymer was the game. There was it 4 points in at half time. Now, look, let's call it straight. I mean, Turloughmore's priority would not be the intermediate championship no more than Craughwell, the second team. They have lost a number of players since the start of the season to the senior team through injuries. But all that aside, what really struck me, Clymer hit 4-2 lads in the last 8 or 9 minutes, right? They made the 5-27, 4-2 of that came late on, but that really highlighted for me, they're driven. Desi and Jason Hanrahan and these lads, they want to make up.
The game was won at that stage.
The game was over, it was done and dusted, but they put the icing on the cake, right? Now, that signified to me that this is all out. We want to get there. The other thing that I can't get over at the minute is they haven't conceded a goal, which is fair going in the championship. Now I know it's only a 3-group game championship, but they seem to be coming at the right time. However, like the beauty here of these semi-finals, you have Aircourt and Rahun, aside from Ceylon, who know what it is to be around the house here as well without getting over the line. So while all the focus is on Climber, they're going to have to deal with this now. They're going to have to deal with the favourites tag and get their job done. And it doesn't matter that they beat Turlock or whoever it was in the group by 100 points. They just have to get over the line now in the semi-final.
Having said that, Stephen, Sean makes the point about, this isn't flash in the pan by any manner of means. And even after the pain of losing the final, Climber have been hovering around this intermediate championship ladder stages for nigh on a decade now. So the big question is this their year?
Probably. Of the 4 teams left, I probably would give them the nod, followed by maybe Malik Aircourt. But you can't play down the experience that they have over the last number of years, Ollie. Like, they really have been consistently there, and when you get that consistency and you're getting to the knockout stages, it comes a time when you're going to push on. They got to the final last year. That was a big step for them. Now can they get it over the line? I think you've alluded to it there. It's all about the mindset now and dealing with the favourites tag, and really, I suppose, putting their best foot forward. I think they possibly can, yeah.
Who are the players, Sean, we're likely to see at the forefront of that Ceylon-Climber clash? Where the clash is going to be won and lost?
Well, the forward power of the lads, I mean, Andrew Keary for Climber, for instance, is shown his experience, but young Jack O'Mara came up with big scores the last day. Kevin Hannay is a very good hurler. I like Liam Fahey in the half-back line as well. There was a solidity about it, but again, I think you need to park that quarter-final, because once after half-time that game was over as a contest. For Ceylon, I mean, Keelan Craven has been an exceptional guy in terms of getting the big scores day in, day out for them. Oren Finn is a big player. The thing that struck me, I saw Ceylon in earlier in the championship, the thing that struck me as well, that they're a big physical side. And I think the other factor here is that, Athenry is a different venue than Ballinasloe in terms of, for the climbers and the Meelick Aircourts to take on a Ceylon team that will not back from them physically. So I think that's an element in it as well. But I think this ultimately comes down to, can you do all the right things to get over the line here? Like, if you remember, lads, at the start of the year, remember when the championship restructure was being talked about, one of our early podcasts, we had the delegation from the east of the county where they were saying it's going to be so difficult for us to match and to get up to the levels. Well, right now, at the penultimate stage of the championship, you have 2 top East clubs there. Now, the irony is, if they win, they won't be going directly to Senior A next year. They'll be going to this new Senior B or whatever it's going to be structured as, right? But there's a huge prize on offer here, and I think for all the 4 teams coming in, this is where you want to be.
There'll be queer talk, Stephen, if it's a Ceylon-Rahun final.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the hurling gone in South and East Galway? But it's possible.
It is possible. I think Sean makes a great point there, even about Kinney Park and as a venue. Like, semi-final days are different to what Ceylon have come across before. Like, they were really good down in Gort, and the way they handled themselves down there, especially with Conor Whelan coming back for Kinvara, and he picking off a point after 16 seconds. They probably didn't legislate for that. They probably thought he was going to be rusty and everything. But you walk into Kinney Park and it's a whole different atmosphere, a whole different vibe, and it really adds to the occasion, because in my mind it probably is the premier hurling ground in the county. And when there's the bigger crowd there, so how will Ceylon deal with that, and can they get themselves up and running quickly enough and not let the occasion get the better of them early doors, because you can be sure Climber will be looking to push on from the off.
It's one thing I found as well, Sean, last Saturday at the football, is, first of all, the run from the dressing rooms out onto the pitch.
Yeah.
You have to run through about 1,500 people in the crowd. For the warm-up beforehand, all the lads ran through the stand to the warm-up pitch at the far end, so they're literally running in front of the spectators that are in early. Talk about I mean, you wouldn't see it in any other code. I mean, you're right in the middle of it. I mean, it has its own unique atmosphere.
It has, and look at Stephen has made the point there. The senior semi-final day, you talk to any players, they love it. Like, I mean, the crowds are massive. But I think what's happening now with the intermediate is that the 2 semis being played together isn't really trying to recreate that. And if we look at the fixtures, lads, most of the senior games a lot of them are on Saturday, so there's the possibility of a big crowd being in
Oh
Kenny
no,
Park
in
as well.
fairness to the board, no, I have to say,
they've
and we're
done that
quick to give
well,
out of them.
yeah.
The focus, the spotlight is completely on the intermediate semis.
The two semis
on
have been
Sunday.
streamed as well,
Yeah.
you know, so it is razzmatazz, like, and
but it is, as you say, it's like the gladiators coming out into the ring, the way they walk through the crowd. And look, at whatever happens with Ceylon Climber, we hope it's a good game. Weather-wise, it looks pretty good as well. A little bit showery, but for those few hours on Sunday afternoon, it looks bright and sunny, and that will help. We got to move to the second game, Meelick Aircourt and Rahul Newcastle. Again, Stephen, two teams with great history, great heritage, but they've just struggled to get over the line and win this intermediate championship. And in the case of Rahun, getting over the semi-final has proved a big obstacle for them.
Yeah, two teams that we came across in Craughwell Intermediates this year as well, and gave us two very good trimmings, in fairness. Like Meelick Aircourt, very organised. I would say probably on balance they probably have the more hurlers in every position, where I would say Rahun Newcastle are very strong down the spine of the team. But again, Eamon Brannigan coming back in there to them is going to be a huge help. Like I would say that if you're coming down, you'd probably give the nod to Meelick Aircourt, but like I was still a bit worried the way that they went out of it against Abbey Knockmoy in the third quarter the last day. I thought they had the game well in command. They were winning all the primary possession, but once they began to lose their way there under the puck out and in that third quarter, they did look vulnerable. So maybe that's something that Rahun Newcastle can target at the weekend, because they certainly have the players to do it.
Yeah, talk about the players then, Sean. Who are we likely to see the stars of the show in this match?
Yeah, and even on that point that Stephen makes, like, I saw the latter stages of that game, like, and if you were coming out of Ballinasloe after those two quarterfinals, you'd say, oh geez, look at Climber, look in a great position. Aircourt struggle against Abbey. But you have to factor in, number one, in a knockout game, Abbey and Knockmoy never give you anything easy, number one. And number two, Aircourt have probably have been tested now more than Climber. But anyway, look at what we're looking at here. I mean, the big question for Meelick Aircourt, John Fleming, who made a big breakout season, or had a big breakout season this year in his involvement with the Galway squad, only came on off the bench. He's nursing an injury in that quarter-final. Can they get more out of him?
Will he start?
I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but like if you have a county player in intermediate level, it's a huge factor. Like, right, Lee McDermott is going very well for them. James Lyons, like Rahun Newcastle. Darren Shaughnessy from Turrick has taken on Rahun for the last 2 years or whatever. He's brought Paul Doolin in with him this year. I think in Colin Hanbury, Stephen, Colin Hanbury is one of the most underrated defenders in Galway. Brother of John, probably was under the line or away from the line right to a degree. Very good hurler. Andy Dunn seems to be getting going well this year. Tony Ogue, he's evergreen. He's a leader in a game like this. So Owen Kennedy is involved with him. Like, so you have two teams here coming again. There's a weight of history in that. Listen, lads, for the last few years we've been knocking at the door. Can we open it? And this could come down to your free taker remaining on spot. Like, you know, we've had high scoring games. I think probably these games may not be as free flowing. Will there be sweepers employed? You know, you're coming down here to take in the chance at everything. And the other thing I would say here is as a standout, we'd say for Climber, last year beaten in the final by Mike Cullen. Look where Mike Cullen have gone. Like, Mike Cullen are the first team through to Senior A. They topped their division. Kilkenare not going well right now, but they came up, was it 2 years ago? But they're up in Senior A. So they made 2 steps in 2 years. So for whoever wins here, they're looking at the prize here that, you know, we can make an impact as well. So that's why the prize is so big.
What's your gut about this one? Because, you know, there's different cases to be made for either Aircourt or Rahun to win this one, Stephen.
I just think maybe Aircourt maybe just have a little bit more in my book. Now, I suppose we were a little bit stronger when we played them in the group stage, more so than when we were played Rahun Newcastle. But that day, they just moved the ball very well. Their wing forwards do a great job in tracking back, picking up the ball and creating the space for inside. And, you know, Lee McDermott inside, like the last couple of games, he's been excellent. So if he can keep that form going, he's going to be a big threat for them. But then Rahun Newcastle, I would say, is like you mentioned Colin Hanbury there. like I suppose he picked up Fergal Healy, who was probably our most experienced player and made things tick for our first 2 games in those wins. And like Fergal couldn't shake him the whole game. And it takes some concentration levels to stick with a player for that length and just negate him out of the game. And because of that, we probably didn't get as much joy out of where we wanted to get it in that game. And then after that, Andy Dunn was having some year. He was outstanding in midfield. Like, we tried 4 different players on him, and just nobody could wrap him up. So, you know, if he brings that form the next day, and it's probably an area that they could maybe get a little bit of joy out of, even though Aircourt's midfield is very good, but that if they get a bit of joy out of him and they're supplying, we haven't mentioned Willie Mackey yet inside, and Willie is a fair unit to have to deal with, and it takes a very good fullback to hold him. So, you know, there are ways that Rahun Newcastle can win this game the next day without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah.
The 2 games, as Sean mentioned, are being live streamed on Galway GA and live in full on Galway Bay FM throughout Sunday. So we're looking forward. And good luck to all 4 parishes. They're huge games, semi-finals. There's
and
no
the
question.
lads in Ceylon and Rahun now are taking down where the Tuam of Herald office addresses are, seeing that he didn't tip them. So anyway, Stephen, we look forward to that.
They're definitely buying more Tuam Heralds in Ceylon than they are in Aircourt, or in Caliber for that matter. So I'd say you'd have to give them the tip up. They'll get a 4-page spread, Stephen, if Ceylon win. We can guarantee that. Lads, we better run through the senior matches as well.
Yeah.
Starting on Friday evening. What's at stake there, Sean? Castlegar, Clymer Daly?
Absolutely nothing. The 2 teams are out, can't go anywhere. It's been a hugely disappointing championship for both those teams. Castlegar, I remember the night the draws were made for this championship, and after about the 4th team in that group came out, the oohs and the ahs had stopped going, huh? Yeah. And like, at that night you were walking away and you were saying, like, Castlegar and Clymer Daly are in the mix here, like, right? But, I mean, to come along, Cashel have been disappointed but haven't lost many games by big margins. Clymer Daly were very good in the first 2 games against Clarenbridge and St Thomas's, but then died against Turlock and were poor against Sarsfields. They have nothing to play for. It's a nothing game. Hence, it's on Friday night. It doesn't have to be played in conjunction with the other 2.
All right. Well, no point beating around the bush.
No,
there.
that's where it is, isn't it, Stephen? That's where it is. It's a rubber game. Like, yeah.
That's
it's unfortunate for the...
Castlegar will
the other thing, of course, is that there's no relegation either, Stephen, from Senior A to B. So
hence the comment about nothing at stake. Well, let's dive into where there is something at stake, because it's a busy afternoon on Saturday. So they're going with the 2:45, 4:30 as regards the throw-in times for all those matches that are going on together. The 2:45 games: Pierce's Ardrahan, Askerfo and Amulya, Portumna Mellows. Sean?
Yeah, that group, Stephen, looking at it, I mean, we know the top 3 in Senior B Group 2, Portumna, Ardrahan and Mellows, but like Portumna at the minute are sitting top of that table, as we can see. They have a good scoring difference, plus 25, but they're playing Mellows. Yeah. Right? So the winner of that game on the head-to-head alone will go up. Now, Ardrahan, as you say, are playing Pierce's. If Ardrahan can get a big win there, you could have a situation where you could have the 3 teams ending up on 8 points. You could have 2 winners. So, Stephen, nothing, there's a huge amount at stake here. The one team that has caught my eye has been Portumna, hasn't it, this year?
Oh, unreal. Like, some of the stuff that Joe is doing now is even better than when he was playing with the county. Like, there was one game there, it was the Hasperfona game, where he caught a ball under the stand, took it on, had to come back in field, was being dragged back, and with one hand from 45 yards, clipped it over the bar. And to have young players around him like that, he's bringing all those young players on. And you can see it. So you can imagine any young fella that's 18, 19, 20, that's playing out there, and they're playing one of the best players ever, and he's bringing them into the game. Joe's not all out for himself. He's about bringing on the team, and you can see that he's bringing other players into play, and they're getting better and better. And the other thing that strikes me about them, and I've seen them twice this year, is their conditioning. Their conditioning is really good, better than a lot of teams. So whoever's doing the conditioning work down there, kudos to them.
Because there was kind of a thinking that Portumna were just on a natural decline here, Sean, and it was almost like, you know, it might take a couple of years, but they're heading back to intermediate type of stuff. But where has this resurgence come from in the last year? Yeah,
but they have a nice few young hurlers coming as well. I mean, this year we saw Declan McLaughlin, for instance, started with the Galway under-20 team and on merit, right? I think did he hit 5 points the last Merton too? He's a good hurler. They got Owen Tracy back as well. They've also, look at, even though he's suspended, Andy Smith is still there, and he's the type of wear your arm on your sleeve type hurler that will generate, the passion in any game, right? As Stephen alluded to, the fact that Joe is still on the field, I mean, he is, the generational hurler. He's still there with them. So I think there's a lot of good things going on. And as Stephen has said, the amount of people that have commented about their conditioning, they're a big physical team as well. So they've had a great run. Now, the flip side of that, they're taking on Mellows. We know here on Monday night, David Collins announced his retirement from the club scene now as well. What a huge warrior he's been for Mellows. And
we really should give a mention to Collie as well, because one of the great players that we've seen in club hurling, specifically helping Mellows to win that title 5 years ago. Like, we got to give him a good mention as well.
We have, and look at you go back to 2005, played in the All-Ireland Senior Final, won in under 21 the week after, Young Hurler of the Year, and a leader, not alone with, as he went on to demonstrate with a GPA, but a driving force. And Stephen, he has to be a loss to Mellows mid-season, and it's also, look at the injuries picked up, as we've seen with a lot of players this year, because the games are coming so thick and fast. Even a simple injury can cost you games here, but he's decided to pull. He's going to be lost in that Mellows dressing room now come the weekend, isn't he?
Oh, definitely. And what he's done for Mellows over the years, like even when things weren't going well, he'd be moved up to sit half forward, and he'd invariably come up at 1, 2, 1, 3 when he needed to. But as an anchor in the defence, like, he's got a great hurling brain. He knew how to sweep the lines, and it said, like, he could also take a score from distance as well. So he was really one of the rallying players that got them to their county final win, 2017. So I think that with him out not featuring the next day, I think that's going to be a big hit for Lee Mellows. And again, just not to have him even to bring on or something to give it a boost, because even the likes of Angus Callan now is back playing Junior A this year for the first time. So that they're two big figures to take out of any team.
And just to go through the Senior B again in the two groups here, the top two teams will go to Senior A next year, but as of now, the top team is automatically qualified into the preliminary quarterfinals, and then the second versus third will play off in games, incidentally, lads, which are fixed for next Tuesday and next Thursday, which I would imagine there'll be a lot of managers looking at those when they arrive on Sunday evening, knowing that they've qualified for the 2 versus 3 playoff in the Senior B, because
there
that's
could be
tight.
a couple of emails sent on Sunday evening, Sean, if there's a few knocks picked up, I'd say, Stephen.
I'd say there could be, because even Mulla Haskell there at the final game in Group 2 Senior B, we know the Teen Aberdeen are into the relegation playoff, but Mulla on 2 points started the championship well, Haskell with no points. This is the last throw of the dice for them as well to avoid that.
We'll have a look at those tables again. We'll bring them up. So, in truth, Sean, what do you expect to happen here? I mean, if you're looking at that poor Trum, Ardrahan, Mellows trio, like if they all finish on 8 points,
you're going to go down to score difference. Yeah,
Portumna's still pretty strong unless they get hammered.
Yeah, and if Portumna win, they have effectively it's done for them. Mellows have a scoring difference of plus 19, as you can see. Ardrahan, Stephen, will have to not alone beat Pearses, which is not simple, but they'll have to put a score on them, no more than what we talked about at the start with Annadown and Berna. That's not a simple scenario either. Yeah, and when you're going out and you don't have anything really to play for, like as Pearses do, they can throw off the shackles and just go out and know it's the last day game of the year. And I'm sure, like any club team that finishes up the year, they probably have set aside the night for themselves as well, so they won't want to be going out on the back of a loss. They'll want to go out and make sure that there's something to live for and hope for next year. But Pearses they're a dogged team, so there's a bit of pride there to play at stake as well. I can see them, maybe putting a dent in Ardrahan's ambitions, but then again, Ardrahan have been fairly on it this year, so I'd imagine they've come through it.
Group 1 is going to be sorted out at 4:30, lads. Again, Loughrea, Pearse Stadium and Gort are the 3 venues this time round. So Sean, put a bit of smock on what we're talking about here with Beha, Kennedy, Leitrim, Moycullen, Oranmore, Mary and Athenry, Teen Aberdeen. Well,
the team here is Moycullen. I mean, they've come up, they've won their first 4 games, and yet they take on Oranmore Mary here. And Oranmore Mary, if they beat them, could cause a little bit of fun here, because I suppose the game here is Athenry. You would expect to beat Teen Aberdeen, lads, in the sense that Teen Aberdeen, with a game to spare, are already into the unfortunate relegation playoff from senior down to intermediate. Athenry, you would expect to win that. They can go on to 6 points there. Baha Killadima, Baha have got the monkey off their back in the sense that their victory the last day has saved their status for the year. They could have a cut at this and try and put up a big score if they could over Killadima Leitrim. But Killadima Leitrim under 20 war this year have been impressive enough as well. So Stephen, these 3 games, this is still alive.
Oh, very much so. But you mentioned Mike Cullen there. Seen them a couple of times this year as well, and they're really organised side. Like they've done really well coming up from intermediate to where they're going. And if they get over this weekend's game to be up in senior A, like that's going to be massive for them. So and massive for Hurling in west of the county. But Oranmore Mary, again, we've spoken a bit about the teams that have come up, made 2 leaps up. Like Oranmore Mary were another team that made the jump from intermediate to senior B to senior A. I can say that if they can circle the wagons and really, go out and have a cut at this, I've come across them twice this year as well. And, when they're going and when their blood is up, they'll hurl with the best, and they've got some really good players around the pitch as well. So I give them a fair. I think they might just clip Mike Cullen in this one, and it really set the cat among the pigeons.
We've got to mention one game at 4:30 as well, as in the senior A Group 1. That's Sarsfield's Turlockmore. That's on at 4:30 in Duggan Park. And there's another game on that we have to allude to as well on Saturday, Sean. And that's, you talk about promotion relegation, but the drop from intermediate down to junior. Like the intermediate relegation final between Castlegar, Kilbacon
is not where you want to be for those 2 clubs.
It's tough.
And I'm not being patronising here, but like the 2 clubs, their standard bearers in Galway Hurling, Castlegar for them, look at obviously, and Stephen knows it this year, in terms of having a second team at intermediate is very difficult. And of course, a lot of other clubs would say, well, look at, you have nothing to complain about when you have. But if there are a few injuries at senior level, there's lads going to be pulled from you straight away. So Castlegar have found themselves in this position. Kilbacon, I mean, a hurling stronghold in terms of their love of the game and all that, have found themselves in this position again. So as you say, while we'll all be looking at who'll be going into the knockouts, for the supporters of those 2 teams, Stephen, you don't want to be there.
No, and it's not easy when you get into a rut like that to try and come out of it again. Like in fairness, Kilbacon probably have been sailing close to the wind the last number of years. They had one good year there, but 3 years ago I think they made it to the quarter final. But I suppose this is an area that probably has been affected by immigration and the rural club, and no more than the likes of Kiltormer and these. It can be really hard to sustain it when you have one good player and then they decide to go to London or move to Dublin or whatever like that. It's like there's not a big incentive to come back down and try and keep something, keep a team going that mightn't be as competitive as they'd like to be. So it's a tough one, and John Burke involved there with Kilbacon as well. He's really trying to squeeze a lot out of them, and they were unlucky against Craughwell in the intermediate championship affair in that game where they came late, probably just left it too late. Got a couple of late goals, and maybe if it went on a few minutes more, it might have helped them to get over the line. But as it is, they are where they are now.
Yeah. Before we leave Saturday, Thomas's Clarenbridge is 4:30 in Athenry, 4:30 in Ballinasloe for Sarsfields.
Maybe a quick word from Stephen. Where, like, in a few words, where do you see that group ending up? Or they're all going to be in the shake-up, I'd say, come later on.
Yeah. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing what Thomas's do this weekend. They have been on the road a long time, and Turlock came with a big performance the last day. How are Thomas is going to react to that? And they're playing the Clarenbridge side that have drawn their last 2 games. So can they get, if it's in the melting pot, can they get it over the line, or will this reignite Thomas's season again, where they've had their scare now and will push on and perhaps go on top of the group again? I didn't mention Castlegar, but I think Castlegar are really unlucky for what they've given to the Galway Senior Championship over the last 2 years. Like, was it 2 years ago, that live stream game on a Friday night with Thomas's in the stadium, and you think that they had it in their hands that evening, and the rest of that campaign were unlucky with a few results, and it's the same this year. So whatever it is that they need to get it over the line, I don't know, but certainly they're probably better than their position is on the table.
Yeah,
and it just shows you how competitive it is. Turlock Sarsfields?
Turlock Sarsfields, I don't know. I think Sarsfields to me are one of those teams that when they turn it on, they're such a joy to watch and really good. But Turlock have to be buoyed by the last day. Their confidence has to be really high, and they're putting up scores. Like the charge that at Turlock more often was where the score is going to come from, or that have to have 8, 9, 10 players contributing to put up scores. But in fairness, what Franny's doing with them there. Is obviously to make a telling now, and maybe have got that bite coming at the right stage, coming into the knockout stages to carry them to where they need to go.
Senior B, or the second group then, Ollie, and there's actually a stat I think before we leave Cashel is that not so much this year they took a few bigger, but in the last 2 years I think they never lost a championship match by more than 2 points. Like, so that just shows you where they've been for the last 2 years.
Stephen saying it there.
Yeah.
I mean, you just need a small bit of luck. Remember the game against Thomas's?
Yeah.
Like they were there, level, couple of minutes to go.
Remember Sarsfields last year?
You just need that break. Listen, lads, we got to wrap up with a look at the Sunday fixtures and the second group, as you rightly say as well, Sean. So much to look forward to in those matches on Sunday afternoon as well, and so much at stake as well. So it starts off with that Loughrea-Kilkenarn match at 12 noon. On Sunday in Gort. That's pretty much
done and dusted as well, in the sense that Loughrea are the first team into the quarterfinals, and I think we have a graphic there on the path that we'll see the teams going to. The second or the big game here is obviously, and we won't ask Stephen for his insight into Craughwell. Gort is a knockout game. The winner, or now a draw, will do Craughwell obviously to get into the knockout stages. But Tommy Larkins and Cappy Taggart have been Larkins. I've been very impressed with so far, Stephen. You've seen them at close hand. There's probably a kick going to come from Cappy though on this one.
I think there has to be. You know, Cappy have been there or thereabouts the last number of years, and will see themselves unfortunate not to have at least contested one county final. Again, they're very good at what they do. They're very good at dropping in back. They're very good at playing it through lines. They're very good at working off if they need to go a long ball, going to the wing forward and working off that. And they've got good forwards inside. But you said it there, Tom Larkins have been impressive this year. Played them twice, moved the ball, run the ball well. They're very good at that support play with the man off the shoulder. And Jason Flynn, in fairness to him, is having a superb campaign. No more so when against. I know they were defeated by Loughrea, but he was Herculean that evening and nearly single-handedly got Tommy Larkins over the line in Ballinasloe. So it's a hard one to call. I guess if I was to put my head on the block, I think maybe Tommy Larkins are just hurling a little bit sharper at the moment. But if there was a time for Cappy to start turning it on again, certainly it's this weekend.
And Gort, obviously favourites to beat Craughwell as well.
Oh, 100%.
Nicely teed and nicely answered. But I mean, it's a nice place to be at the same time. Like, it's a knockout, like say a draw will do ye, but like it comes down to this. Now you've had losses. Obviously Niall Healy not a factor.
Yeah.
The point I make, you've had suspensions. That anyone with injuries here, like, and even going back to like Thomas's. Don't have Shane Cooney, don't have David Sherry, didn't have Bernard Burke. Turlock are missing lads. Every club is missing lads. It is a factor.
It is, but like, suppose you look at Craughwell over the last 10 years or more, Niall Healy has been the go-to man for us. Obviously, we know that Niall isn't going to go on forever. We wish he would, but I suppose this may be a taste of where we're at, or it might just be the heads up that the club needs to say, listen, we got to put our own structures in place now and brace ourselves that we got to get the younger players up to speed. And we have a really good crop of younger players coming through from that intermediate team this year. 7 of them were 18 years of age, and 3 of them were 19 years of age. So that's a good. And again, we have another three lads up there in senior that are 18, 19 as well. So if we can flood them, surely, yeah, we'll the club will be fine. But again, looking ahead to this week's game, I think we're 2 clubs, and I suppose that are trying to get to grips now of blooding in players and trying to I suppose I hate that word transition at times, but maybe that's where we've both fallen inadvertently into ourselves.
Yeah, it's all fascinating because, as you say, Sean, straight away you're into next Tuesday night. So let's have a look at the format.
Yeah.
the first of these series of playoffs. So it's just going to come a mile a minute from here on. Talk us through what we're looking at here, Sean, in the format.
Yeah, the format will be that whoever finishes in the second and third positions in the respective Senior B groups, there's a 2 versus 3 playoff. So the second in Group 1 will play the third in the other group. So they're down for, as I say, Tuesday and Thursday night next week. It's a busy week because the under-20 final is still penciled in the replay on the Wednesday night, even though I think that may change. But we say then you come to the next stage of the championship. If you looked at it there, the teams directly to the quarterfinals, there'll be 4 of them. If you can see, Loughrea are one of there's only 3 teams yet that appear on this sheet that have got it here. Loughrea are one of them directly to the quarterfinals. They will be joined by the other top 2 teams in Senior A. Then you'll have 8 teams in the preliminary quarterfinals, and you can see there'll be 4 from Senior A. They'll be the 3rd and 4th teams, and there'll be the Senior B teams, and you can see that Mike Cullen are the only team that are in the hat there. So what will happen is we'll have the 2 versus 3 playoff. Then the following round will be the preliminary quarterfinals where the 4 from Senior A play the 4 from Senior B. The carrot for the quarterfinalists is you don't play until the quarterfinal by either being first or second in Senior A. And then you come to the quarterfinals themselves, where the 4 winners in the preliminary quarterfinals will take on the 4 Senior A teams. So the carrot is there for the teams to be first or second in Senior A. You avoid a preliminary quarterfinal, and you'll also be sort of seeded for the quarterfinal. So that's what you can see in front of us right now. I think there'll be 2s and 4s this weekend as normal. I think the football was very exciting last weekend, in fairness. Maybe not as much as the side in hurling, but I think with some of the things we've talked about, there's still plenty of action ahead of us.
A lot of those gaps will be filled in by then, and we look forward then to putting a bit more of a
focus on
where we are with those preliminary.
And the other thing, look at that. I mean, it's an age-old discussion. 5 rounds of the Senior Football and Hurling Championship. Most of the teams will be gone after 10 weeks. So look at.
Yeah, well, Stephen already alluded to the clubs that have made plans for Sunday night, so I don't know if there's a party going on in a parish near you. Do let us know, because we're free. Our work is done by about 6 o'clock on Sunday evenings now with the 4:30 throw-ins. Stephen, thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
Great lad to have Stephen Glennon with us as well. That's it for now. Good luck, Sean, at the weekend. Looking forward. We're live streaming, by the way, on Saturday afternoon from 2:30 right the way through till 6 o'clock. So we'll be covering the 2:45 and the 4:30 games. If you log on to galwayfm.ie, you won't miss a puck of any ball across all of those venues, literally for 3.5 hours. It's going to be a fantastic day of coverage. Sunday then, all our focus, and rightly so, will be on those 2 intermediate semi-finals in Kenny Park in Athenry, and we'll run the rule over all 4 of those games and plenty more when we're back with our Over the Line podcast in association with Seymours of Loughrea next Thursday. Thanks for watching.
Over the Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh in association with Seymours Loughrea.